This podcast is part of the Robots Radio Rocket Club, a program designed to help all podcasts reach their full potential. For information about joining the Robots Radio Rocket Club, check out robotsradio.net.
Welcome to Holocron Histories, Star Wars Canon versus Legends, where we're going to take a deep dive into the lore of the Star Wars universe.
Hello, and welcome to the Holocron Histories podcast, where we talk of all things Star Wars, Legends, and canon. I am Austin, also known as Teacup.
And I am Ben of Temeria.
All right, so Ben, what are we talking about today?
Today, we are actually going to go over the mysterious force that is in the Star Wars universe.
Wow, that's a big topic.
It is a big topic. There is a lot of info in both canon and legends compared to our previous episode with the lightsaber, which it's still developing in canon, but with the force, it's a ground. It's one of the ground things that they need to have.
Yeah. I feel like there's a lot of information about it, but also not a lot of information about it.
Yes, like
that we don't know.
It's still wrapped in a mystery, even to this day. I mean, what Star Wars has been around for over 40 years, and even that the Force as a topic is still very mysterious and very mystical.
Yeah. Well, let's just dive in. Well, let's start with the legends. What the legends had to say about the Force.
Yeah. So in Legends, and even in canon, Force is the thing that ties the universe together. In Legends, the Force has been known by many names. To the Quay, it is called the Power of the Cosmos, which the Quay was the original actual native species to Dathomir before we even see, like, if you know Dathomir from like the Clone Wars or even Jedi Fallen Order, where we see the Night Brother, Night Sisters, it's the original native species to that planet.
Mm-hmm.
And then we get into where the Force is also known as the Way in ancient times, in the ancient galactic calendar, which there's not really much of a calendar. But there's also different aspects to the Force. So you have the light side, the dark side, and the Force is actually in Legends divided up in 4 different aspects. So you have the living force, the unifying force, the cosmic force, and the physical force.
Right.
So when you break that down, the living force is going to be where all living beings, all their life energy ties into the force with that. The unifying force reflects the aspects of connected visions to the future, to the past, to where you're going to see where Jedi and Sith will get like force visions. That is from the unifying force. Right. The cosmic force is what connects force ghosts to the quote unquote physical plane, to where they can manifest, to where you get like Obi-Wan or Yoda like having their force ghosts appearing before people, or even like during the Old Republic, you could see a lot of different force ghosts in like ancient tombs and whatnot, still trying to finish their work before they passed. And then you get the physical force, which is the force that is the part of the aspect of the force that gives you basically your powers, to where you can manipulate, use telekinesis, lift objects, mind control, stuff like that.
Right.
But then we get into where the light and the dark side. Light side is obviously what the Jedi are known to use, which is more on the positive emotions, when such as like hope, good, benevolence, healing, stuff like that. And then there's the dark side, which is based on selfishness, anger, passion, malice, hatred, fear, to where you see a lot of like Sith use.
And often, like especially in Legends, we haven't really seen a lot of this in canon, except for like Emperor Palpatine, really. But the dark side, the use of it actually does like corrupt like the organic and living essence of a being, often causing Sith or other dark side users to look deformed or sickly or scars in other ways like that.
Yeah, so that's like where like the red eyes come from. When someone goes down to the dark side, their eyes turn to a yellowish red tint. You see that in like episode 3 with Anakin when he fully commits to the dark side, his eyes change color. Um, but another example is like, and this is controversial, I know, but Dooku, the reason why he doesn't have dark, like yellow tinted eyes is yes, he uses the dark side, but he never, he still had his own ideals that he kept with without fully progressing. It's, but he's still considered a Sith. He's still a Sith. But then we get into like the discovery of the Force, which in Legends was 30. It was in the year 36,453 BBY before the Battle of Yavin. Philosophers and scientists from several star systems actually gathered on Tython, and the Force was discovered, quote unquote. They found out there is something greater in the galaxy that connected everything together, and that is where like the birthplace of the Jedi come from, and then eventually the Sith down the road. And then if you remember from the last episode, Tython is the planet where the Jedi Order was founded and where the lightsabers were also created on originally as well.
And in the Legends material, especially like post Return of the Jedi, like Tython becomes more of a like holy site again. They speak about Tython a lot in a lot of the Legend books, especially the Legacy of the Force series and the Fate of the Jedi books.
Yeah. Yep. And then Tython is also is actually the one of the planets you start on if you ever play the Old Republic MMO. That is where all the Jedi classes actually start on, is on Tython, because that they rebuilt the Jedi Temple on the planet because the Jedi Temple on Coruscant, no surprise, gets demolished like it does every other like era, which is hilarious and sad.
Yes.
Back on the Force, so with the light side is what Jedi use, but the dark side is going back with that is very addictive. So that's why when you see Jedi constantly meditating, trying to think of positive attitude, trying to have no emotion, no attachment, is because the dark side is so addictive. They can easily stray from it. And that's like what happens to Anakin. You actually see that with a lot of different Jedi during the Clone War era where they go towards the dark. And then such as with the Force, people who are that can wield the Force are called Force sensitives. So all the Jedi, all dark Sith are Force sensitives. Even actually the witches of Dathomir are actually quote unquote Force sensitives, even though they use a different method of using the Force. And then if you ever play not so Old Republic 1 or 2, there are other species that can also use the Force as well. Can't remember the top of my head what her name is in KOTOR 2.
You're thinking of Visas Mar.
Yes, exactly. Visas Mar. She's blind, but she can see through the Force.
Yes, so there's lots of Force sensitive species in the Legends material. They kind of like they haven't really brought that back in canon, except for like kind of in Dathomir.
Mhm.
But yeah, so.
And then when going into the force with the different abilities that you can force sensitives can tap into, you have the Jedi mind trick, which is one of the most famous ones. You can shoot waves of energies from your hand, like the force push. You can actually defy gravity. So when you see any force wielder, jump off of a skyscraper or, like a dropship or something, and they land perfectly fine, they're actually using the force to slow down their ascent to where they don't splat. You can
Right.
lift objects, actually make force barriers, which is kind of cool, which we don't see in canon really too much, but we do see that in the Legends material. And then when you go into, and that's like the everyday force powers, and when you get to the dark side does have some unique force powers that derive from it. So you got like force choking, force lightning are the two main ones that you see. Darth Vader uses force choking all the time. Sidious uses force lightning, and many other Sith lords do as well.
Right. I've noticed this. This is like kind of the thing I've noticed, especially in Legends canon and maybe a little bit in the official canon. But the main difference between like dark side and light side is the light side abilities are kind of using the force around them to assist them in what they're trying to accomplish. So they manipulate gravity, they move kind of like different waves of energy out with, force powers and all of the things like that. But like the Sith abilities are all about either defying the laws of nature, in a lot of what was called like Sith alchemy, which had to do like increasing your strength, giving you unnatural powers, using even with Darth Plagueis defying death, or manipulating and taking control of the Force. And I think that's a big turn of philosophy that the Sith used control the Force and the Jedi allow themselves to be guided by the Force, which I think is a big difference between the two.
Yeah, that's a really good example. Like, we also look into the legends with like Knights of the Republic. Bastila Shan, when she uses a special technique called battle meditation, to where she can enhance the combat efficiency all the Republic soldiers or all her allies all at once just by meditating. And then you go into the Sith Lords, all their stuff, all their powers are based on hurting others without consequence.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's also rare force abilities. Like I said, one of them would be battle meditation that Bastila Shan uses. That is actually a pretty rare ability. You also can, like Austin said, Darth Plagueis was able to move his soul into one body into another, so he can he can live forever, basically.
Mm-hmm.
Then you have like Darth Nihilus, who from the KOTOR series, he was able to feed off the force energy of other beings.
Yeah.
Which that fight in the game was kind of fun. um, and then there's also Emperor Vitiate or Valkorion, that you know him from the Star Wars Old Republic MMO.
Mm-hmm.
He takes Darth Nihilus's ability and like take that times like 1,000. He can literally wipe out an entire planet, consume all the life of it, destroy it completely just to keep himself alive.
Right. And like the thing about Vitiate's ability is that he only has to really do it once.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep. And it goes back onto where his powers actually came from ancient Sith alchemy. So they had to do an ancient ritual, and by doing this ritual, he wiped out his entire home planet to where he consumed all the life essence, and he lived for thousands of years.
Right. And like this is kind of like people are gonna be upset about this, but we do kind of like both in canon and legends kind of know how the Force kind of works, which I guess is like the introduction of midichlorians. Like a Force sensitive being can sense and connect to the midichlorians around them. It's kind of like what gives like the Jedi their extra perceptive powers, is because they can basically sense living beings around them. And like, you know, Vader will say like, I haven't sensed this presence. Like each presence is unique in the Force. And like Yoda has a conversation with the clones in the Clone Wars about like, you're not the same to me because in the Force each of you are different. And so I think with Vitiate, like one of the things that's so like dramatic about what he does on that planet is Force sensitives cannot live on that planet. They can't even even though there's like solid rock, there might still be atmosphere and everything. They literally cannot go on that planet because they can't. It's so shocking to them because they can't sense anything. It's like a void of nothingness. And if you've read the Revan novelization, which follows the events after KOTOR 2 with Revan, the Jedi exile goes there and like she almost loses herself, but because of what happened to her, and I'm not going to spoil that game even though it's like 20 years old,
right?
She was able to survive for very unique reasons.
But yeah, so yeah,
even the Sith at that point, they still rely on that like tapping into the livingness of other beings around them.
Yeah, you get a good strong sense of what the Force means to both the Jedi and the Sith in the Revan novel. And then what Vitious does to that planet when like the Jedi exile does step on that, or even like some of the Sith, they can't be on there long because it's draining them, because it's that trauma from the Force itself, which goes in the next point where strong Force users can sense disturbances throughout the Force, which one big thing is the Jedi exiles traumatic event from Malachor 5 that we see in KOTOR during the Mandalorian Wars, which it is over a 20-year-old game, so spoiler. Malachor 5 they used a experimental weapon called the Shadow Engine. The Jedi exile turned it on. It literally is I think it was anti-gravity, to where it pulled everything to the planet's surface and killed literally thousands upon thousands of soldiers on both sides, the Republic and even the Mandalorians, and to where the Jedi exile actually had to cut herself off of the Force so she could not feel anything, because it was going to be that traumatic to where she was about to die. Yeah. It's bad.
And that's another thing in canon, like if you just watch canon, and you can see that, you can kind of see that the Force is almost like it's just a power that the Jedi use. But the Legends very much establishes it as like this own agent. And of course it has a will, and like they talk about that in canon. But like events like the mass shadow generator, the destruction of Malachor 5, even the Great Jedi Purge, they leave what's called wounds in the Force. And it's like actually detrimental to the galaxy. And like they talk about like the echo of Malachor 5 in the KOTOR 2 games, and how that wound, that much death, that much destruction causes a great wound in the Force, and it latches onto the Jedi exile, and the exile basically takes it with her everywhere she goes.
Yeah, exactly. We see in Legends, it's more of a living thing, to where in canon it's like, okay, yeah, the Force exists. So they have an established they established the Force in canon to where it exists, it's a thing, but they haven't like done a deep dive into the Force itself compared to what Legends has put out there.
Right.
But yeah, that's what we got in Legends.
All right. Well, let's take our break and we'll get going into that.
Yeah.
Once upon a time, 27 years after the bombs fell, there were two people, a vault dweller and a California girl. They met and sparks flew. That's when things got interesting. Once Upon a Wasteland is their story. Follow Elizabeth Kirby and Odessa Valdez as they pursue their happily ever after in the post-apocalyptic Appalachian wasteland of Fallout 76. Available on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, and many other podcasting platforms. Once Upon a Wasteland, a Fallout 76 love story. Available now.
All right. Well, welcome to the middle of our show where we talk about all things related to the podcast that don't have to do with the lore of Star Wars. So we just want to let you know that if you're looking to support the podcast, one of the best ways to do that is to leave us a review either on Apple or Spotify. And if you leave us a 5-star review and write us some words on that on Apple, we will read them out on a future episode of the show. And Ben, we actually have 2 5-star reviews to share today.
We do.
Yes. So our first one comes from Genesis, who is a big person in the Robots Radio Discord. The review says, always more to the lore. Teacup of Temeria? Ben Teacup? Not sure what the ship name is going to be, but the chemistry between the two hosts is already percolating. I can't wait to hear more and get into the big differences between canon and Legends. And of course, Genesis hosts the 2 Girls, 1 Ship podcast where they talk about video games and romances. So of course, she tried to give us a ship name. I don't know about you, Ben, but I'm partial to Teacup of Temeria.
Right? And if you haven't checked out their show is really good if you want to get into the romance stuff of get video game characters.
Yes. And the next review comes from SheCup, who is my wife. And if you can't get your wife to support you, I don't know who will. But so she says, great new show. I'm super excited for this new show. The first episode was great and gave me lots of new info about the origins and history of the lightsaber. Can't wait for more episodes. So thank you, SheCup. She wouldn't say she liked it if she actually didn't. I promise.
Well, that's good.
Yes. So thank you that. And again, if you leave us a review, you don't need to listen on either Apple or Spotify, but as long as you have an account, you can go in there and leave reviews for that. Ben, do you have anything else to share?
No, I mean, well, you can always follow us on our Twitter, and you can actually tweet us on at SW Hollow Histories on Twitter. So if you want to give us feedback on there, you're welcome to do that as well.
Yeah. You can also find us on the Robots Radio Network Discord. There is a channel there for the Holocron Histories, and you can chat us up there. People have gotten to sending Star Wars gifts, which have been hilarious.
Yes.
So yeah. So you ready to get back to the episode?
Oh yeah. Let's get back into the
right.
canon.
Yeah, let's go.
Hello, gentle listener. Every Friday, be sure to tune in.
What the hell are you doing, Ampersand?
Hi, Charlie. I'm sorry I broke in.
I thought I was the only one that talked to myself.
Well, I'm letting everyone know about the Fumbling Four and the Almighty Crit.
Woohoo! It's a 5e live play podcast. Join us every week. Where do we find it, you old crusty coot? Anywhere you can get all your podcasts.
Woohoo! You find
it every Friday, you stupid cat!
All right, Ben. So we talked about Legends. Let's talk about what the actual new canon has established about the Force, which some of it transfers over because a lot of the information we have comes from what was already moved to canon.
Yeah. So yeah, a lot of things did stay the same. So just like in Legends, the Force is everywhere. It binds the galaxies together, it penetrates you, and basically makes a web in the galaxy. So in canon, what we have is the Force is described as an energy shield that creates and connects every living thing together in the universe. So just like canon you see in Star Wars Rebels, canon actually teaches Ezra this in the, I believe, episode 2 of Star Wars Rebel, to where he explains the Force. You get the explanation of it also in the Star Wars The Clone Wars as well, and even episode 1. But compared to Legends, in canon, and this is in Legends as well, the Force is especially powerful in beings with high metachlorians counts. So they're microscopic intelligent life forms that form a symbiotic relationship with the host blood. So we get that reference in episode 1 when Qui-Gon Jinn actually takes Anakin's blood, sends it over to Obi-Wan. Obi-Wan checks out the midichlorian count, and it actually is higher than Master Yoda's. And Yoda, being over a 800 years, I think at that point, year old being, strong in the Force, his species specifically is super powerful in the Force. Having someone else in the galaxy who has higher metachlorians than he does is astonishing. But then, and then just like in Legends, beings that can wield the Force are Force sensitive. They get unique powers, just like in Legends. Mind tricks, Force push, depending on what side of the Force you rely on, grants you different abilities or abilities that you should or should not use. And then compared to Legends, where the Force is divided in 4 aspects, in canon, it's actually a lot more simplified, to where the Force is actually divided up only in 2. So you have the living Force and the cosmic Force. That's it. Just those 2.
Right.
And with the living Force, it represents the energy in all living beings. And those energies are then fed into the cosmic Force, which binds the galaxy together. So if you get a chance, if anybody wants to watch Star Wars Clone Wars season 6, which is I believe the Yoda Chronicles, believe as all season 6, which is where Yoda goes on a spiritual journey to complete his training in the Force from the living Force into the cosmic Force. And you get that from Qui-Gon actually telling Yoda to go and do this training so he can finish what he was not able to.
Right. And that's a big thing that, like, you can get if you read the Master and Apprentice book, which follows like early days of Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan. One of the tensions between Qui-Gon and the Jedi Council is like he's almost kind of fanatical about the Force, in a sense of like he's kind of like focused on Jedi prophecy and is kind of looking at this looking more at the cosmic Force and like as a separate entity. And whereas most Jedi talk about, focus on the living Force, which is like what is present to you in this moment and like what is within you and other living creatures. Qui-Gon kind of like takes a more effort to like try to understand the more kind of bigger cosmic force, and that's like a big tension between him, Yoda, and the Jedi Council.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so like in those episodes in Clone Wars, Qui-Gon talks to Yoda through the Force. He doesn't present himself as a Force ghost because he can't, because he never mastered the way of the cosmic force, and that's what he is intending Yoda to do, to finish that training so he could present himself as a Force ghost when he finally connects with the Force fully. And then later down the road, Obi-Wan eventually, we still don't know, but he does do this training at some point, and imagined, because he is able to present himself as a Force ghost to Luke when we see him in the original trilogy. Now we might get that in the Obi-Wan show. Who knows? They might put in that plot hole because we still don't know a whole lot about it. But and then Anakin, he can present himself as Force Ghost, but he's the chosen one, so he's special. He exempts from all that.
Right. Well, there is a thing about, like, I believe in the old Legends canon, and I don't know if this is true, but there was talk that Yoda and Obi-Wan actually come to Anakin on his deathbed and basically guide him to the ability to present as a Force ghost.
Oh, okay. That would
Yeah,
be huh.
Yeah, and then I'm assuming that my bigger plot hole, I guess, is that I guess maybe Luke shows Leia on her deathbed the similar way that they showed Anakin.
Mm-hmm.
But Luke, I'm assuming, got his training from Yoda or Ben or somewhere.
Yeah, I'm assuming after the destruction of the Death Star 2 and Return, and like when he starts forming his own Jedi temple, he probably got more training through Obi-Wan and Yoda through the Force on how he could project himself through the Force. Like we see in Star Wars Just Last Jedi, Kylo's fighting a Force ghost. And it's probably one of the most epic fight scenes though in that movie, though. It was great.
Well, is it a Force ghost? I thought it's called like astral projection or something.
Force ghost, astral project. Yeah.
I don't know. They're similar powers.
Yeah. But then so back with the Force, Force sensitivity can actually be passed to your offspring. So just like how Luke and Leia are Force sensitive because their father was Anakin Skywalker, other children who are born from Force sensitives could be Force sensitive as well. Not always though. It does depend on the person because of the midichlorians and all that.
Right.
And then obviously Force sensitive children can also be born with from parents that aren't Force sensitive whatsoever. Which we see that a lot in the majority of the time in canon. Like Ezra Bridger, for once, his parents weren't Force sensitive, but he is.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's also when two individuals are strong in the Force, they can actually create a Force bond, which in that bond lets them individuals communicate over mass distances. So we don't really see that in the shows or the movies, but we do get those from the novelizations of the High Republic books. There are many Padawans that have Force bonds with their masters to where they can communicate with each other and sense where they are in the galaxy, which is really cool.
Right. There's actually a big, I can't remember if it's a Legends moment or not Legends moments, but between Anakin and Obi-Wan. And they're actually on separate missions back when Anakin is a Padawan. And he's like doing something else where he's like learning, and Obi-Wan is off on some mission that goes the wrong way, and Obi-Wan is in trouble. And he's like, Anakin finishes his mission and he comes back to the Jedi Council, and he's basically like, Obi-Wan's in trouble. And Mace Windu and Yoda have a conversation, and Mace is basically like, I don't know what's more disturbing, the fact that at such a young age Anakin is able to sense his master so far away, or that his bond and attachment to his master is so strong that he can do that.
Mm-hmm.
Which is kind of like that whole object of like force bonds, and like force bonds in Legends too they're meant to be kind of like this not really harmful, mainly beneficial thing, but they can be harmful.
Yeah, so like in Legends, when you play Knights of Old Republic 2, you actually create a force bond. Your player character creates a force bond with a character named Kreia, and you see her hand get cut off, you feel that pain. So if anything else would have happened to her, let's say if she died, you more than likely would have died.
Right. And part of it, like part of the deal with the Jedi exile in KOTOR 2 is that she, because of the wound and the force that happens at Malachor 5, she creates force bonds. And it's like her body and her force essence is looking for another force essence to attach to so it can survive.
Mm-hmm.
And you see that which is kind of like explains how she gets reestablished to the force and things like that. But like force bonds, they're meant to just kind of be like, rare is it that a person can like straight up communicate with another person. That's a rare ability. But you can like more than just like general thoughts and emotions. Like, and even if you look in the movies, Yoda, when Anakin is slaughtering the Sand People, he is sensing that pain from Anakin, and he tells Mace Windu, "Is like, in pain, young Skywalker is," like other things like that.
Yeah. So yeah, we do see a force bond kind of a thing in Attack of the Clones with Anakin and Yoda. But it's mostly like, yeah, it's like a beacon mostly to sense danger or sense emotions compared to straight up talking to each other like you would on a communicator.
Right. And there are in KOTOR 2, your bond with Kreia, it does allow you to communicate telepathically.
True.
Seems regardless of distance doesn't seem to affect that.
And then with that being said, with force bonds, and during the High Republic novels that we get now from Disney, Jedi Master Avar Kriss, who is one of the main characters in the Light of the Jedi novel, which is the first High Republic book, she can actually connect surrounding force users together and all strengthen all of them, and also let them all communicate through the force telepathically. So that she does this while there is the I'm trying to think, they call them emergencies in the book, but there's a ship that comes out of a hyperspace, and it's like a giant galactic star cruiser holding passengers and whatnot, and it's about to crash into this planet and basically decimate it completely, to where she connects all the Jedi in the area together to where they can coordinate saving all these people, while also trying to take out the ship before it crashes into the planet.
Right.
And then, just like in Legends, the Force can grant multiple powers throughout the that abilities that people can use. So the Force in canon, you get telekinesis, mental manipulation, like the Jedi mind trick, moving objects with your mind. You can actually enhance your physical abilities, so faster reflexes, be able to jump higher, sprint faster. You can also have the abilities to sedate and induce sleep. So we see that in episode 1 where Qui-Gon Jinn wants to shut up Jar Jar. He just waves his hand and Jar Jar just goes takes a nap, which is great. And then They can also survive injury that would normally cripple or kill them by using the Force to keep them alive or keep the bleeding at bay or anything like that.
Mm-hmm.
And then we also, I mean, in the sequel series, in the sequel trilogy, we see a bunch of other new Force powers like Force healing. We actually see, I believe we do see Force drain from Palpatine to where he can suck out the Force of living creatures. And then Rey uses Force healing. Compared to Legends Force healing, this is really weird. You use your own life force to heal, which to me doesn't make too much sense. It's like, oh, I'm using my own life force to heal someone. It's like, okay, but there's the Force all around you.
Right. Well, it kind of gets to this, like, it's kind of established in other like universes with magic and magical healing that there's always a cost, and like
True.
It kind of like gets that like only death can pay for life, which we kind of see that with what Ben Solo does for Rey. But yeah, I think that it's more like I do a lot of D&D, and it's very much like just a copy and paste of the life transference spell.
All right. Okay, I can see what they did there then. And then with the Force being able to give them faster reflexes, we see in the High Republic novels that so all the Jedis have their own unique. They all have their own starfighter, and it's a Vector class starfighter. So these starfighters are specifically made for Force wielders because they cannot be handled without being able to use the Force. So they can maneuver it so well attuned to themselves to where they can do maneuvers that a normal starfighter can't even do.
Right.
And then
that makes sense.
Yeah, and then I mean that's really what I have on in the canon. I mean, the last thing I really have is the Force has been record in the galaxy for over 25,000 years prior to the Galactic Republic. But I mean, that's really it. And then I mean, the Force we do see the Force as and this can have their own episode, but like the father, the son, and the daughter have their own thing with the Force where they're like the representation and entities for the balance, the dark and the light, which is really cool.
Yeah, I think we could be here all day talking about the Mortis arc of Clone Wars.
Oh my god, yes.
And just all the things that happen in those 3 episodes of Clone Wars. So yeah, and like its relation to the prophecy of the Chosen One and
the world between worlds, which we see in Rebels, which is a whole other thing.
Right. But yeah, do not have time for this episode to get into those.
Oh no.
Yes. But yeah, I think that's like a big thing about, for those, like some of you might know, some of you might not know, but my background is in religious studies. And so like, and in universe, they refer to the Jedi and the Sith as religions of the Force. And like from a religious perspective, the Force is so interesting because it's not really, it's like an entity, this kind of like, it's not something like that you really direct your worship at, I guess, is really where it's getting at to that. It's more just something that exists. And so the Mortis arc for me kind of adds another layer because there's now these personified representations of something that is not very personal. And so it's interesting to that. And I think that when we talk about that in comparison with the prophecy of the Chosen One, mainly because I think a lot of people misunderstand what balance of the Force means in the Star Wars universe.
There's multiple like takes that you can put on like on balance specifically.
Right. And so it'll be really interesting to get into that. But for all of you hardcore Star Wars nerds, we didn't forget about the Mortis arc. It just gets its own episode.
Yeah, there's too much in that one.
Yeah. All right. We got anything else for us, Ben?
No, I mean I can say like our next episode. Oh well, I will say this. All of our episodes will be every Monday. This our first two episodes are Wednesday just to get the podcast out there. But then every new episode will be every Monday going forward. And then the next episode we are going to go over the Jedi.
Woohoo! All right. Well, we'll see you next week. And thank you for listening to the Holocron Histories.
And may the Force be with you. Thank you for listening to Holocron Histories, Star Wars Canon versus Legends. You can find us on the Robots Radio Discord at robotsradio.net. You can also follow us on Twitter at SWHoloHistories and contact us at holocronhistories@gmail.com.